President Donald Trump stopped in Qatar today, the next stop in his Mideast visit. He touted a $96 billion deal between the Gulf state and Boeing. The president also embraced a former jihadist who now leads Syria. To help us assess the president's trip, we are joined by Will Todman, a senior fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Will, let's start with Syria. The first meeting between a U.S. leader and a Syrian leader in 25 years. What does that mean for the region?
This is a really important geopolitical move for the region. Syria has been struggling with more than a decade of war. The migration crisis has rippled across the region and across Europe. The people in Syria live in awful conditions now, more than 90% living in poverty, and all the while under a really widespread sanctions regime from the US. Now, even though the former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was overthrown by rebels last December, so far President Trump had kept those sanctions in place and hadn't expressed much interest in engaging with Syria. So this was quite a surprise announcement yesterday that came, but I think it's a really important one as he tries to stabilize the broader region and say that he wants to have relationships, he wants to give Syrians a chance to rebuild their country, and lifting sanctions is a really important step to allow that investment to come in that will get them back on their feet again.
That was one signal he sent. He sent another in a speech that he gave in Saudi Arabia. He said that American presidents, quote, had been afflicted with the focus that it's our job, meaning presidents' jobs, to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. How did you read that message from the U.S. president?
Yeah, it's such a reversal from the kinds of messages we heard from President Biden when he had his trip to Saudi Arabia in 2022. Then, if you remember, he had this complicated dance where he agreed to do a fist bump with MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And that was because of the actions that MBS had taken, including he's understood to be responsible for the murder of a Washington Post journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. Now we're seeing President Trump say he doesn't want to impose U.S. values. He doesn't want to talk about good governance. He doesn't want to talk about democratic values or rights. Instead, he wants to sign economic deals. He wants a different kind of relationship with the Gulf. And as we're seeing from these eye-watering announcements of investment deals that are coming out, that really is a new relationship, I think, for the U.S. and these Arab Gulf states.
What do you make of Trump not stopping in Israel on this trip?
It's interesting. It's certainly an omission, and I think although it would be too early to say that there's a crisis in U.S.-Israeli relations, certainly President Trump has taken several steps in the last few weeks that really are not in line with Israel's interests and how the current Israeli government views its interests. They began with the talks that the U.S. is undergoing with Iran on its nuclear program. Israel is not happy at all about those talks and does not want to see Iran strike a deal with the U.S. because ultimately it doesn't trust Iran. Second, then President Trump announced that he was stopping military actions against the Houthis in Yemen. And the Houthis agreed to stop firing rockets at U.S. military targets, but they did not talk about stopping firing on Israel. And now with this third announcement of the potential normalization agreement with Syria and the new government in Syria and the lifting of sanctions, that is also something that I think Israeli leaders are really very concerned about.